October 15, 1979. Tehran, Iran. The air in the U.S. Embassy compound tasted like smoke and revolution. Marcus Brennan stood at his office window on the third floor of the Chancery building, watching demonstrators mass beyond the gates. Their chants rolled through the autumn afternoon like thunder before a storm. Death to America. Death to the Shah. The words had become the city's heartbeat, pulsing through every street, every conversation, every moment of a day that felt increasingly like borrowed time. He turned from the window, his reflection ghosting across the glass, a man of 42 who looked older in this light. The office behind him was neat, organized, the workspace of someone who believed order could hold back chaos. Files arranged by classification level, cables sorted by urgency, a photograph of his daughter on the desk, her graduation smile frozen in a moment before the world had fractured into this. Then he saw it, the drawer. His personal filing cabinet, the one containing the most sensitive cable traffic from Washington. It was closed, but not quite flush. A gap of perhaps 2 millimeters, invisible to anyone who hadn't opened and closed that drawer 1,000 times. Marcus felt his pulse spike, that animal awareness of danger that every diplomat learned to recognize or died ignoring. He moved to the cabinet slowly, as if sudden motion might confirm what he already knew. The lock showed no signs of tampering, but then it wouldn't. Not if someone had a key. Not if someone had access, trust, proximity. He pulled the drawer open. Everything appeared in order. The cables were there, arranged as he'd left them. But the paper, he could see now, had been disturbed. The edges weren't quite aligned. Someone with careful hands had gone through these documents, photographed them perhaps, or simply memorized their contents. Marcus sat down heavily in his chair. His mind was already running through the possibilities, the protocols, the people who had access to this office. The list was short. His deputy, who was in Washington for consultations. The security officer who had no reason to access diplomatic cables. The cleaning staff who were escorted and supervised. And Leila Ahmadi, his secretary for 3 years. The woman who brought him tea in the mornings, who laughed at his terrible Farsi pronunciation, who had introduced him to Hafez and Rumi, who had made this posting bearable when everything else about Tehran had become a waking nightmare. Leila, who had a key to this office because she needed one. Leila, who stayed late when the work demanded it. Leila, who knew his schedule, his habits, his blind spots. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He wanted to be wrong. God, how he wanted to be wrong. But 30 years in the Foreign Service had taught him that the people who hurt you most were always the ones closest to you. That was the iron law of betrayal. It required proximity. It required trust. It required the kind of access that only friendship could provide. He heard her footsteps in the hallway. Leila's walk was distinctive, a quick, efficient rhythm that matched her personality. Marcus forced his face into neutrality. That diplomatic mask he'd worn so long it sometimes felt more real than whatever lay beneath. She appeared in the doorway, holding a folder of correspondence that needed his signature. Leila was 31, though she carried herself with the gravity of someone older. She wore a modest blue dress, her dark hair covered by a scarf in deference to the changing political climate. Her face was intelligent, watchful, the kind of face that revealed nothing unless she chose to reveal it. They had bonded over books, initially. She'd found him reading Sadi one afternoon, stumbling through the Persian text with a dictionary, and had offered to help. That had led to weekly discussions, an exchange of perspectives that had deepened into something rare in the diplomatic world, genuine connection, across the divide of nationality and culture. Or so he'd believed. Now, looking at her, Marcus wondered if any of it had been real. Had she cultivated him deliberately? Had every shared laugh, every literary debate, every moment of apparent friendship been calculated manipulation? The thought made him feel sick. "The correspondence from the consular section," she said, setting the folder on his desk. Her English was flawless, barely accented. "They need your approval before close of business." "Thank you, Leila." His voice sounded normal to his own ears. "That was something. Could you close the door, please? I need to discuss something with you." A flicker of something crossed her face. Concern, fear, or just curiosity. She closed the door and stood before his desk, hands folded, waiting. The professional secretary, the trusted assistant, the possible spy. Marcus chose his words carefully. "I've noticed some irregularities with file access. I need to ask you directly. Have you been going through classified materials without authorization?" The silence that followed felt infinite. Leila's face remained composed, but he saw her hands tighten, knuckles whitening. When she spoke, her voice was steady. "What makes you think that?" "Don't," the word came out harder than he intended. "Don't insult both of us with evasion. I know, Leila, the question is what happens next." She looked at him for a long moment, and something in her expression shifted. The mask dropped just slightly, and he saw beneath it to exhaustion, fear, and something that might have been relief. "You should fire me," she said quietly. "Report me to security." "That's the protocol, isn't it?" "That's one option." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her. "It would mean arrest. SAVAK is gone, but SAVAMA is worse. They're paranoid, brutal, looking for traitors everywhere. A woman accused of spying for America. You know what they'd do to you." "I wasn't spying for America." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I was spying on America, for my country." "Your country?" Marcus felt a bitter laugh escape. "Which version? The Shah's Iran? The revolution's Iran? Whose orders are you following, Leila?" She moved to the window, looking out at the demonstrators. "My brother was arrested by SAVAK 2 years ago. They said he was a communist." "He wasn't. He was just a student who attended the wrong meeting, said the wrong things. They held him for 6 months. When he came back, he was different, broken." Her voice caught. "SAVAMA approached me after the revolution. They said I could help ensure nothing like that ever happened again. That I could serve the new Iran by monitoring American activities." "So you agreed to betray me." The words tasted like ash. "I agreed to protect my family." She turned to face him, and there were tears in her eyes now. "You think this is easy. You think I wanted to do this. You're my friend, Marcus. The only American who ever treated me like an equal, who cared about my culture, my literature, my thoughts. Every time I photographed a cable, every time I reported on your activities, I felt like I was cutting away a piece of myself." "Then why continue?" "Because they have my brother again. Different prison, same threat. If I don't cooperate, he disappears. If I'm exposed, we both disappear." She wiped at her eyes angrily. "So yes, report me. Do what you have to do. At least it will be over." Marcus sat in silence, processing this. The protocols were clear. Suspected intelligence compromise required immediate reporting to the regional security officer. Leila would be detained, questioned, likely handed over to Iranian authorities as a gesture of cooperation. Her brother would be killed. She would be killed. And the intelligence damage would be assessed, contained, managed through the usual channels. But there was another possibility, a dangerous one, an option that violated every rule he'd sworn to uphold but might, just might, offer a way through the chaos that was coming. "How much have they gotten?" he asked. "Cables. Meeting summaries. Nothing operational. I don't have access to the really sensitive material, just the diplomatic traffic that crosses your desk." "And your handler, who do you report to?" "A man named Reza. I don't know his real name. We meet in a bookshop in the bazaar. I pass him film, he passes me instructions." Marcus stood, pacing now, his mind working through angles and risks. The embassy is going to be overrun. Not today, maybe not this month, but soon. The revolutionaries are looking for a provocation, and we're the perfect target. When it happens, the people inside are going to be in serious danger. Leila watched him, confused. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I need someone on the inside of SAVAMA. Someone who can warn me when the attack is coming. Someone who can provide intelligence about what the revolutionaries are planning." He stopped pacing, met her eyes. "I'm saying I don't report you. Instead, you work for me. Really work for me. You keep feeding your handler information, but it's information I control. And in exchange, you tell me everything they're planning. You want me to be a double agent." Her voice was flat with disbelief. "I want to save lives. American lives, yes, but also yours. And your brother's. If you help me, I can get you both out when the time comes. But I need real intelligence, Leila. I need to know what's coming before it arrives." She shook her head slowly. "You're asking me to betray my country again, just in a different direction. I'm asking you to choose which betrayal you can live with." Marcus kept his voice gentle. "You've been caught between impossible choices since this started. I'm offering you a way to protect the people you care about while maybe, possibly, preventing a catastrophe. That's the best option either of us has right now." Leila was silent for a long time. Outside, the chanting grew louder. The demonstrators were testing the gates, pushing against the barriers. The embassy's Iranian guards looked nervous, uncertain of their loyalties. Everything was balanced on a knife's edge, and they both knew it. "If they discover what I'm doing," she said finally, "they'll kill me slowly. They'll make an example. If I report you now, they'll kill you quickly. At least this way you have a chance." She laughed, a sound without humor. "A chance? In Tehran in 1979, that's the best anyone can hope for, isn't it?" She met his eyes. "What do you need from me?" Marcus felt relief and guilt in equal measure. "First, tell me everything you've already passed to them. Every cable, every document. I need to assess the damage." They spent the next 2 hours going through it. Leila had a precise memory, recounting dates and contents with the accuracy of someone who'd been trained well. The damage was significant but not catastrophic. She'd provided intelligence on American diplomatic positions, assessments of the revolutionary government, communications with Washington about the Shah's medical situation. Valuable information, certainly, but nothing that compromised sources or methods. "Your handler will expect a meeting soon," Marcus said. "When is it scheduled?" "Friday, 3 days from now. The bookshop closes for prayers at noon. We meet in the back room." "Good, I'll prepare material for you to pass along. Cables that look sensitive but are actually carefully crafted to mislead. Can you handle that?" Leila nodded. "What do you need from them?" "Everything. Timing of demonstrations, plans for the embassy, names of revolutionary leaders, anything that might give us warning when the situation deteriorates beyond the point of no return." He paused. "And Leila, this stays between us. No one else can know. Not my deputy, not security, no one. If this leaks, we're both dead." "I understand." She stood to leave, then hesitated. "Marcus, why are you doing this? You could report me, wash your hands of the whole thing. Why take this risk?" He thought about that, about friendship and betrayal, about the choices people made when trapped between impossible options. "Because I meant what I said. You're my friend. And because I think we're going to need each other before this is over." She nodded slowly and left his office. Marcus watched her go, then turned back to the window. The demonstrators were dispersing now, heading home for the evening. But they'd be back tomorrow, and the day after, and eventually they'd come over those walls and everything would change. He just made a decision that could save lives or cost them, that could prevent a crisis or deepen it. In the world of intelligence, there were no certainties, only calculated risks and the hope that you'd chosen correctly. Marcus pulled out a secure notepad and began drafting the first of the false cables he'd feed through Leila to SAVAMA. The information had to be plausible enough to maintain her credibility, but misleading enough to protect American interests. Over the following weeks, a strange routine developed. Leila continued her work as his secretary, professional and efficient. But now, there were quiet moments when she'd pass him a note with intelligence from SAVAMA. Plans for demonstrations. Discussions among revolutionary leaders about the embassy's fate. Names of militants being organized into action committees. In return, Marcus fed her carefully crafted disinformation. Cables suggesting the Americans were considering recognizing the revolutionary government. Reports indicating the embassy staff would be reduced voluntarily. Assessments that painted the U.S. as resigned to its diminished role in Iran. All of it designed to make the revolutionaries complacent, to buy time. But the intelligence Leila provided grew increasingly alarming. SAVAMA was coordinating with militant student groups. They were mapping the embassy compound, identifying weak points in security. They were planning something big, though the exact timing remained unclear. On November 1st, Leila came to his office with a face like stone. "It's happening," she said without preamble. "Sunday, November 4th. Student militants are going to storm the embassy. SAVAMA is supporting them but maintaining deniability. They plan to take hostages." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. How many students? Hundreds, maybe more. They're calling it a protest, but it's coordinated. They have weapons, supplies for a siege. "This isn't a demonstration, Marcus. It's an occupation. I need to inform the ambassador." "And tell him what?" "That your secretary, who's been spying for SAVAMA, has now decided to warn you about an attack. They'll ask how you know. You'll have to expose our arrangement." She was right. The intelligence was actionable, critical, but he couldn't use it without revealing its source. And revealing Leila meant her death. Marcus paced his office, mind racing through options. "I can try to warn them obliquely. Suggest we've received intelligence about a potential action. Recommend increased security." Will they listen? "I don't know. The ambassador is trying to maintain normal operations, show we're not intimidated. Recommending evacuation or fortress protocols might be seen as overreaction." He stopped pacing, looked at her. "You need to leave. Now, today. Get your brother and disappear." "Where would we go? SAVAMA has files on me." "If I run, they'll know I warned you. They'll hunt us. Then we get you out of the country. I can arrange emergency visas, transportation to Turkey. It's risky, but it's better than staying here when this explodes." Leila shook her head. "My brother is in Evin prison. They moved him there last week. I can't get him out without SAVAMA's cooperation, and they'll never agree to that. If I run, they'll execute him as punishment. The trap was perfect. Leila couldn't flee without condemning her brother. She couldn't stay without risking capture when the embassy fell. And Marcus couldn't use her intelligence without exposing her as his source. They were all caught in a web of impossible choices, and time was running out. "Then we have 3 days," Marcus said. 3 days to find a way to save your brother, warn the embassy, and get you out alive. I don't know if that's possible, but we're going to try. What followed were 72 hours of desperate maneuvering. Marcus did warn the ambassador, couching it in vague terms about increased threat indicators and hostile surveillance. Security was enhanced, but not dramatically. The embassy remained open, functioning, a symbol of American presence that the revolutionaries found increasingly intolerable. Meanwhile, Marcus worked his contacts, calling in every favor he'd accumulated in 3 years in Tehran. He found a lawyer willing to petition for the brothers' release on humanitarian grounds. He located a smuggler who could move 2 people across the border to Turkey, no questions asked. He prepared false documents, emergency cash, everything they'd need for an escape. But the brother remained in Evan, and time was slipping away. On November 3rd, the day before the planned attack, Leila came to him with tears streaming down her face. "Razak contacted me. They're moving my brother to an undisclosed location. They know something is wrong. They're securing their assets." Marcus felt the walls closing in. "We're out of time. You have to choose, Leila, your brother or your life." "I can't save both." "Then save the embassy," she said. "Warn them properly. Tell them what's coming. Use the intelligence however you need to." "That means exposing you." "I know." Her voice was steady now, resolved. "But maybe if I cooperate, if I give them everything, they'll show mercy to my brother. Maybe he'll survive this even if I don't." Marcus wanted to argue, to find another way, but there wasn't one. The mathematics of the situation were brutal and clear. He took her hands in his. "I'm sorry for all of this, for putting you in this position. You didn't put me here, history did, revolution did. The choices of powerful men who never thought about people like me did." She squeezed his hands. "But you tried to help. That matters. Remember that." That evening, Marcus went to the ambassador with everything. The full story of Leila's recruitment by SAVAMA, their arrangement, the intelligence about the planned attack. The ambassador's face went through shock, anger, and finally grim acceptance. "We'll increase security immediately," he said. "Lock down the compound, prepare for siege conditions, and the secretary. She stays in protective custody here. When this is over, we negotiate her safe passage out of Iran as part of whatever resolution we reach." But November 4th, 1979, dawned with a fury that made all their preparations meaningless. The students came over the walls in waves, hundreds of them, overwhelming the Iranian guards who'd been ordered not to resist. The embassy fell in hours, and 66 Americans were taken hostage in what would become a 444-day ordeal that reshaped American foreign policy. Marcus was among them. He spent the first weeks in a small room, blindfolded, listening to his captors debate what to do with the prisoners. He thought about Leila constantly, wondering if she'd been arrested, if her brother had survived, if any of their desperate gambit had mattered. It was 6 weeks into captivity when one of the guards pulled him aside. The man spoke in low, urgent Farsi. "There is a woman. She says she knows you. She has information about American intelligence operations. She wants to trade it for her brother's life." Marcus felt his heart stop. What woman? The secretary, Leila Ahmadi. She's been very cooperative, very useful, the guard smiled. She sends you a message. She says to remember Hafez. The line about the tavern and the mosque. Marcus knew the line. They discussed it months ago, debating its meaning. The tavern and the mosque are both houses of worship, Hafez had written. In both places, the seeker finds what they seek. Leila was telling him she'd found her path, made her choice, and was at peace with it. Tell her, Marcus said carefully, that I remember, and that I understand. The guard nodded and left. Marcus never saw Leila again. Later, through the fragmentary intelligence that filtered into the hostage compound, he learned that she'd been released after providing extensive debriefings to SAVAMA. Her brother had been freed as part of the arrangement. They disappeared into the chaos of revolutionary Iran, 2 more lives swallowed by history's great turning. Marcus was released in January 1981, part of the negotiated settlement that ended the hostage crisis. He returned to Washington, was debriefed, commended for his handling of a complex intelligence situation. The official report praised his recruitment of a SAVAMA asset who provided critical intelligence about revolutionary activities. But Marcus knew the truth was more complicated. Leila hadn't been his asset. She'd been a woman caught between impossible loyalties, trying to protect the people she loved while serving causes she barely believed in. Their arrangement hadn't been a triumph of American intelligence. It had been 2 people, trapped by history, trying to find a way through the darkness that didn't destroy everything they cared about. He never learned what happened to her. Whether she and her brother survived the war with Iraq that followed. Whether they found peace in the new Iran that emerged from the revolution's chaos. Whether she ever thought about those autumn days in 1979, when friendship and betrayal had become so tangled that neither of them could tell where one ended and the other began. But sometimes, late at night, Marcus would pull out his old copy of Hafez and read the lines they'd discussed. The tavern and the mosque, the seeker finding what they seek, and he'd wonder if Leila had found what she was looking for in the end. If the choices they'd made had mattered, if friendship could survive betrayal, or if betrayal was just another word for the compromises people made when the world gave them no good options. The Tehran embassy crisis became a defining moment in American history. It shaped foreign policy for generations, influenced presidential elections, and created scars that never fully healed. But for Marcus Brennan, it would always be about one woman in a blue dress, standing at his office window, choosing between impossible loyalties and finding a kind of courage in the choice itself. That was the real story. Not the geopolitics or the hostage negotiations, but the human cost of living in a time when the world was breaking apart and everyone was just trying to survive the fracture.